Good evening. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back. This is Talking Point. My name is Fahraaz Patel. We'd like to thank you, the viewer, for staying with us. Now, this year marks 80 years of the ANC Youth League. And of course, when it started in 1944, it was at the height of the World War II. When World War II had concluded, of course, we had seen apartheid end, and the Youth League was seen as this body that had really created so many significant leaders of the time. One of them, of course, former President, the late Nelson Mandela, and many other leaders coming after that. We've seen, of course, during the democratic era, the names of Hilaal, Malusi Gigaba, and Julius Malema also being the leaders of the ANC Youth League. Joining me now, my guest today, to reflect on 80 years of the Youth League, the challenges facing the youth of today, and of course the current political climate and how the Youth League plays its part with regards to that. I'd like to welcome the current president of the organization, Collen Malatji. Mr. Malatji, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us here on Talking Point on Hilaal TV.
No, thank you very much for the invite.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Of course, you know, stranger, you were here before when you were just elected, and I'm going to touch on, you know, how it has been for the last year and 2 months. But I was listening to your lecture last week, you know, when the former leaders had come, and of course there was Fikile Mbalula there, Malusi Gigaba there, among so many others. Yes. When you reflect on 80 years of the Youth League, you know, talk to us about the progression of it.
Look, it was not an easy one, because the Youth League comes at a time where the oppressive system was starting to be more highly organized and clear on the continuation of their program of sidelining majority of South African from their own country. And the Youth League comes at a time where elders in the ANC were not prepared to fight the war the way it must be fought. You know, the Youth League introduced the program of action, of mass mobilization of people of South Africa having the country ungovernable, the armed struggle. You know, if you remember, the ANC was mainly led by pastors and all people who believed in peaceful protests and submission of letters to international leaders to come and assist for total liberation. But it was led by dynamic young people, you know, young people who have went to varsity, were highly educated, who had many other options apart from waging a revolution. You know, they had an option to run their own law firms, to mathematicians, teachers, highly respected youth in society. Now, it has evolved over time. You know, then it came to influence many organizations to be formed, you know, including the influence of the Steve, because we were influenced by the beginning of the foundation of the Youth League. Even after the Youth League was banned, the struggle continued in the country, because the youth were left to exile and those who were in prison were an inspiration for those who remained in the country. And that assisted to advance 1976 revolution, the formation of COSAS, 1979 student organization, influenced also by 1976 student uprising, the formation of NUM, the formation of COSATU, the UTF itself, you know, its biggest affiliate was COSAS of the UTF. Now, you can show the evolution and how the youth did that. Look, then it moved to the 90s. You don't know what to do in the 90s, because now 90s structures are unbanned. Different youth are coming back into the country, those military trained, those who went to school, universities outside the country, those who were fighting battles internally. And those different youths are expected to unite to relaunch the ANC Youth League in 1991, the combination of psycho and the youth's safe structures outside the country had to join hands to formulate the ANC Youth League, which was ultimately elected the vibrant Peter Mokaba, you know, the late Peter Mokaba. 1991, who also introduced many slogans. It had a very difficult time with President Nelson Mandela, because it was a stage of reconciliation. Now, the youth did not know what to do then, because the youth was mobilized to fight. They're not mobilized to cover it.
And I want to bring that up, Mr. Malatji, because when you look at the Youth League, when you read the books, I mean, Anton Lembede mentioned it quite well. When you listen to, you know, the likes of the late Oliver Tambo, when it was kind of like the push that was needed, because you've mentioned it, the ANC, the elders of the time were more democratic. They wanted to speak from dialogue from the National Party. But how important was it that the Youth League said, well, it's clear that the National Party doesn't really want to speak. They want to fight with the guns, with the bombs, and they have the technological military for that to happen. how important was it at the time for the Youth League to say, well, there has to be an armed struggle, and hence you get Umkhonto Sizwe coming up and saying the armed struggle has to happen?
Yeah, it's because they've accepted that since 1912, the formation of the ANC, there's not been much progress in resolving the problems. You are negotiating, people are killing you. You are defenseless. Society was starting to become hopeless. They had to restore hopes, and they had to say the only way to restore hope is to be selfless and put our lives on the line for this democracy of our people. Because people are dying either way every day. Now, we can't say we're leaders of society who want to take this country forward, but we're not prepared to wage a revolution that everywhere still will be casualties in that revolution. Already people are killed every day. People are turned to slaves. People are depositioned from their land, removed from their families, moved into towns. Families collapsed in rural areas and townships. The abuse of women, and now already the system was very oppressive, and that generation was saying they're left with no choice but to fight back.
Mr. Malatji, when we look at democracy kicks in, you've mentioned it now, of course, the late Peter Mokaba had come in, and he was a character that was built on the foundations of taking arms and fighting against the oppressors. How did the Youth League then need to reimagine itself in a democratic South Africa when, of course, we are in this transition period of non-violence and trying to rebuild the country?
You see, the reality is that it was a difficult one to move from because now it's a generation of people who are trained to fight. Now in 94 they are told you're no longer fighting, now you are a youth league of a ruling party. Now what do you do? Now the most important thing is that now it means you must hold the ruling party accountable. You must make sure that activism does not die on the ground. The youth are aware of opportunities on what happens in government, and the youth are part of this, the activities of their own country. What is that? The most important battle that we fought at that time was free education for all, was employment for the youth, was the restructuring of the economy, was to make sure that the young people are all in corridors of power. Now it means that you're no longer waging a battle with the common enemy. Now you are in the system now of a government, and now you're fighting the government and pushing them to, reminding them of why we really fought for this democracy. Now it was a difficult one because now you're not dealing with an apartheid system, now you're dealing with a democratically elected president who's affirmed by the people, who's loved by the people, who you must hold accountable. Now you run a risk also of being at odds with the youth, because the youth, when they see you, they see a president of a youth league of a ruling party. Now, most of the time when you speak for the youth, they tend to say, but why are you not resolving this thing in the boardroom? Because you're part of the ruling party, you know, there's a difficulty on that one. And especially our generation, we're at a time where a lot of you no longer want to participate, no longer have hope in politics, that the politics will resolve their problems because of high level of youth unemployment, high level of crime in this country, high level of illegal foreigners, the hijacking of buildings, safety and depositioning of the youth. And it has caused too many problems because 30 years later the expectation was that some of those things should have been resolved.
One of those things that didn't get resolved was free education. I want to go to 2015, the fees must fall. How much of the, because I mean, 3 years prior to that, of course, you had Julius Malema, who had then, of course, been kicked out of the ANC Youth League by then President Jacob Zuma. The ANC Youth League, there's still the big question mark hanging over them. And then comes, of course, a current crop of leaders within that fees must fall. How much did fees must fall reignite youth politics in that they went to the ground and, of course, protested over something which was promised by the ANC government back in 1994, free education for all?
Yeah, I think at first, let's first acknowledge that since 94 until date, one of the commitments that we can say we've delivered on is free education until the level of from grade R up until matric. Any learner in South Africa can go to school. I think was those achievements, and I think the biggest problem we're faced with, and I think we've attempted as the ANC to inject resources in tertiary education. More must be done because the commitment was free education. And the biggest things that we've done is that's what we call institutional autonomies. That autonomy of universities is a problem because no matter how much money government inject in that institution of higher learning, they increase fees whenever they want. They make it so difficult to have access to tertiary level for ordinary kids from poor backgrounds who are dependent on government to resolve their problems. And I think it's a debate we must bring up because more must be done. You know, another problem that without justifying anything is that we really have a problem of the biggest problem we faced with is how the economy is structured. You have an economy that minorities are controlling the majorities of the economy. Now, the input into the economy, whether it's taxes, whether it's the government, is too little, because mainly most of it goes to social grants, goes to building of houses. Those are resources that are supposed to be directed to education. And when we've made a call as a youth league, and we're marching now to the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, that we need to reindustrialize the economy. It's no longer sustainable that our economy, with so many minerals below our soil, a lot of Arab countries have promised us with oil that they can run the country. That is why we can't do it here when we've got more resources than them. We've said enough is enough. 30 years later, we can't be justifying that. Factories can be closed. Factories are turned into squatter camps and churches now, when they're supposed to be utilized, when these raw materials are supposed to leave the soil and go to these factories for processing and creating employment and also other economic opportunities, so that everyone the full participant in the economy. Now, we have told the ANC as the youth league that how we've been running for the past 30 years is not sustainable. We're at the brink of a civil war. We're at the brink of the youth rising and burning this country down because of frustrations. Go to our townships. Our townships are a holiday every day. The youth are all over the streets on drugs, drinking alcohol. That's not sustainable. At whose expense? Now, we really have to restructure our youth and focus on it. And we can see, we don't want to do that when the economy is fully operational, active. Free education will be a difficult thing to do, because there'll be so much injection into the economy and participation. Everyone will have access to education.
After the break, I continue my conversation with Collen Malatji, ANC Youth League President. We're going to be talking about the challenges of the youth in the 7th administration. Do stay tuned to Talking Point. Welcome back to Talking About. I'm in conversation with Collen Malatji, the ANC Youth League President. Mr. Malatji, it's, if I stand to be corrected, 14 months as the ANC Youth League President?
14 months.
14, yeah, around about there. Are you satisfied with the progress that you have made as the ANC Youth League leader? Are you where you want to be right now in this current leadership of the Youth League?
Look, we're faced with a big task. Our task was to build structures of the Youth League and also bring back the energy into the youth. I think we've done a lot in our term. We had one of the biggest rallies at the stadium in Kwandebele. We had protests against safety and drugs. We've organized the youth in all sectors with an engagement with former leaders. We are currently trying to revive that institution of higher learning, SASCO, Gainsbourg, Zaichemon, and you can see there's a bit of improvement from where we're from, where we've done badly in SRC elections due to the collapse of NEFSAS. We're meeting ministers, we're holding them accountable. We have put more than 17 young people into parliament below the age of 35. It has never happened in the history of the movement under these difficult conditions of the GNU. Now, those are things that we can say we've achieved, but we're saying more must be done. That's why we're not relaxing. We're saying we're now redirecting the energies to the private sector, because it's not only government that has a responsibility to resolve these socio-economic problems of our own country. We've made calls to the Minister of Police and Home Affairs that they must start raids, we must take over our buildings, must take over our towns, because they're highly hijacked by illegal foreigners. It's a fact. We live in it every day. Anyone who says it's not true does not live in South Africa. Look at Hillbrow, look at Sunnyside, look at Chimiston, Prospect, all the areas that you can count. They are in the hands of illegal foreigners. Most of these buildings are owned by the public works. Now I'm saying that the government must take this thing serious of cleaning up our towns. I'm saying if you clean up Chimiston, for example, it means TVET colleges like EWCs, which lack accommodation, don't have to build new accommodations. You can easily fix those buildings for students' usages. You can use it for also settlement of people, those buildings. Those are areas that we need to come in. But at the top of our agenda is the issue of the economy. And we want to be known as a youth league that has assisted to push.
And that's where I want to come. And that's where I want to come. I mean, youth unemployment. I drive past, because where I come from in Benoni, I drive past the Department of Labor office, and I see mostly young people, and that's very scary. Young people are despondent. They come out of university. Everyone's been sold the dream, including myself. And I mean, you can speak also because you once also attended university. We come out of university, we sold this dream that we're going to get a job, but it's not always the case. Now, how is the Youth League going to say, we're going to take this government of national unity to task, because they need to be providing the jobs for the youth. Now, I know it's not just government, and you've mentioned it, the private sector, but how does the Youth League say we're going to put pressure on the private sector and the public sector to provide work? Because the Constitution says it. Work must be given to those within the country to grow the economy. The economy, if I stand to be corrected, was just nearing the 40% mark, the unemployment rate. And most of that 40% are young people. That has to change, isn't it?
Yeah, 60% of that 40% are young people.
There you go. Yeah.
You know, it's a disaster. We've declared it a disaster as the ANC Youth League. That this unemployment matter, it is a disaster. And the president must treat it the same way we treat COVID-19. And we, you know, part of the reason we're going to the JSE and will also include the PIC at some point.
Yes.
It is because we've been investing in wrong things. You know, over 100 top 100 companies in the JSE are funded by the PIC. Most of them, their projects. And in some areas, you'll find that they build malls. They're busy building malls, shopping centers. You know, who's going to buy there when we are seeing that 40% of the population is unemployed? Now, we must reinvest into the reindustrialization of the economy. And I can see everyone speaking the language now. Looks like people are starting to listen because everyone is starting to speak about the reindustrialization of the economy. Now, the matter now is practicalizing it, making it practical, moving all the investments to industries. You know, I've just discovered, before I did not know, I've discovered that to put export quotas, I don't even need parliament. The minister can act on it. The minister's got the powers to.
You're talking of trade in industry?
Yes.
Master Park Stow, yeah.
And the Minister of Minerals has got, together they can do that, send them you and put export quotas. Now, it does not need big meetings to do that. It needs,
but do they have the will to do it?
That's what we must force them to do, because it's not like they have a choice. We're at the brink of collapse. The countries, no one can help it. A lot of these companies in the JSE, for the past years, have been disinvesting from the economy. They've not been investing back money in the economy. They've been looking for other opportunities elsewhere, not in the countries where they're making money. Now, those are areas that we need to speak about. Those are painful truths that everyone now must come in partnership to resolve this problem. Now, days of talking and speeches have ended. Now, one practical work, want people to sit down and say, these are the first minerals you start with. For example, a lot of cars now in China, everywhere else are utilizing batteries. Most of their minerals are here in the country. Now, if you can sell them the mineral, why are you not sell them the batteries? Because their cars will need the batteries to survive. I'm just giving an example to say that than giving them the minerals, we rather give them the batteries and create employment utilizing the minerals we have now. I'm saying those are areas that we need to speak in. You know, platinum is a big thing. You know, a lot of things requires platinum. Now, why can't we do the processing here and give them the final product to create opportunities for us? Now, those are things that will not even take 12 years to do. It will just require us to bring in young people together with big business and say, go and reopen the factories that exist that have closed down. These are the resources, this is the funding. The minerals were clear with the agreement with the mining companies, whoever. They'll move from there to here, including agriculture. The processing of agri-processing must happen in areas where there's farming of agriculture to create employment in those areas so that you manage the issue of migrant workers, everyone moving to Gauteng or big cities, where they can actively build an economy in the areas where they are at.
You've mentioned that private sector needs to come to the party and that there needs to be some sort of middle ground. You've got one side capitalism, you've got the other side government, and of course, you know, organizations like yourself, the Youth League, that wants the youngsters to get involved. How do you merge that together? How do you find that middle ground? Because at the end of the day, the capitalists are out there for one thing. They want to make profits. That's what capitalism is for. So how do you bring it to the middle ground where the companies that are sitting in South Africa have a duty to offer employment to the local citizens of the country?
For the longest time, we've allowed capital to do as they please in the country. We've not been disciplining them because the only obsession must not be the maximization of profit. The other obsession they must have is the building of a country. Let me tell you, if the youth in this country revolt, they have no businesses to take care of. Now, this crisis that we're dealing with is also their crisis. Because if the moment there's a revolt in this country, there's protests, there's uprisings, where will they make their money from? Because they'll close down all their businesses. Now that's how they must see it, that they're also under threat. Now that's how they must come and partner with us to say that we have ideas, we want to partner with you to resolve the problems that because it's our stress. When I see the youth full in the township doing crime on drugs, drinking alcohol every day, not having anything to do, that's my stress as the president of the youth. Now they need to share the stress with me because the youth will revolt. And then when they revolt, they'll reverse the gains of freedom.
The one thing the youth are not interested in, prior to the elections, when speaking to kids either off the record or actually on the record, they were not interested in politics because, and this is the rhetoric that has been happening with the youth, they would say, well, nothing's going to change, the politicians are all the same, why should we go ahead and vote? As the ANC Youth League president, how much of a duty is it for you to tell the youth that, yes, you do have a role to play, and yes, getting involved in politics, you actually do have a say in a lot of the things that can happen within this country?
The reality is that you can't blame them. When you are demoralized because of unemployment, poverty, inequality, and you look at no one gives you hope, no one says tomorrow the problem will be resolved, you get demoralized. And politics to you becomes just a talk show of a few individuals who want to utilize your vote to amass wealth or get employment in parliament and all of those things. And that is the danger of that issue. But you see, it's important for you to get involved because they can't neglect that responsibility because all the problems that they want to resolve require policy making, require proper leaders, requires their ideas because there's no one who's going to resolve. Even during the apartheid days, it's the youth who rose and fought for the total liberation of their people. No one will rise because the majority of population in Africa are the youth. The fresh ideas, the fresh minds are the youth. The ideas are sitting with the youth. Now the platform they have is in politics. They need to come close and be conscientized to understand the importance of them. It's not only a South African thing, it's a world thing. In the whole world, the youth have lost interest. And I travel all over the world, even in countries where I think there's high level of development and consciousness. You engage there with the youth, you get to realize, this thing of politicians, it's for old people. They tend to neglect that responsibility and only leave it to the old to deal with it.
Mr. Malatji, I want to touch on NSFAS. It's been the biggest headache that's out there right now. It's been the biggest challenge. And it's probably going to be a challenge within the 7th administration. Whenever I hear Freeman Nomvalo is the NSFAS administrator and he's been put to the media to be talking, the challenges are there, they're trying, but there always seems to be some sort of stumbling block. I've interviewed individuals from SASCO, gentlemen or ladies that you know quite well from that organization, and they said that NSFAS has been such a massive stumbling block. Within 2 minutes, I mean, what is the Youth League going to do to try and hold NSFAS accountable? Because there are students that are really in need of this funding mechanism.
We've been holding NSFAS accountable from day one, if you remember.
Yes.
We've been consistent. We called up the first speech I addressed when I was the president of the Youth League, when I was at closing the conference. I said, we need to dissolve the NSFAS board and put the new administration in place so that we resolve the problems, because how everything is structured, no one knows what to do there. Then the CEO, everybody is doing their own things. We really have to act. The CEO is taking this direction, the chair of the board is taking a different direction. In the middle of a crisis where the youth are not receiving stipends, and the minister took long to listen. By the time he was listening, the damage was too deep, and it's part of the reasons why the ANC got affected in elections. A lot of youth in those campuses revolted against the ANC. He said they don't vote, or they voted for opposition because of anger, because we promised to resolve those problems for them. Now, if they're displaced in accommodation, if they don't receive their stipends, if their tutorials are not paid, they will not vote for the African National Congress because they're frustrated. Now, we've met with the minister, the new minister. She appears to be like someone who's got a plan. We're giving her a bit of time to analyze her. She has consulted us on the issue of NSFAS and their plans of appointing a board. We've supported her on those decisions. We'll wait and see. Obviously, if she does not do as per agreement, we'll be the first to act and call for her removal and the removal of the board until we get it right. But also, there's something that at NSFAS, which we're not speaking about, that NSFAS is a bank. Why is it as a bank not dealing with the distribution of the resource itself? Why must we put many hands in it that causes problems? Now, we've called upon the minister that if NSFAS wants a partnership, there's Post Bank, which was signed off by the president. Why is NSFAS, Post Bank, an African bank, which the state owns about 7% of it, why is not working together to fight distribution of? Why must we look for things things that don't exist. Now, those ideas we gave them, that utilize the state, so that you take responsibility. We don't want to be told that part of the reason stipends are not delivered is because of a company which voters never gave mandate to. But if you speak about Post Bank, African Bank, and NEFSAS, those are state-owned entities. You take responsibility for them. We take responsibility for their failures and their achievements.
After the break, I continue my conversation with Collen Malatji. We're going to be talking about the Government of National Unity and, of course, the Youth League's involvement with regards to what changes need to be made, what alterations, and how this Government of National Unity can function for the purposes of the citizens of South Africa. Do stay tuned. Welcome back to Talking Point. I'm still in conversation with Collen Malatji. Now, Mr. Malatji, the last time you visited our studios, the ANC was still in power. Of course, we now have a Government of National Unity. Before I talk about, the Youth League's involvement in the Government of National Unity, the challenges that may occur in that, I listened to, of course, you had a press conference a couple of weeks ago where you said that the EFF should join the Government of National Unity. You said that Floyd Shivambu, as of now joined the MK party, was quote-unquote the stumbling block. Would you speak as a current Youth League president to a former Youth League president? Would you convince your predecessor, Julius Malema, to join? Is that something that if ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa had to come to you and say, try and convince him, would you be up to the task?
Yeah, I'll do that. Look, the president has opened this journey to everyone that agrees to our values and the principles of put in place. Others chose not to be part of this solution. Because there are two options. It's either you allow the country to collapse into a disaster, or let ANC does what it did in 1994, unite everyone. And we chose the most difficult route as the ANC to unite everyone. It means that sometimes we work with people that don't agree with their principles. We are fighting now with the TA through the Pillar Act. We are fighting with the TA through the NHI. We're still going to have a long way with them. The TA must understand one thing, is that we have invited them. They've agreed to form part of this government. But when they're in government, there's a government of the country led by President Ramaphosa. There is no TA minister. It's a minister of government. They are part of the state. Now, they tend to make a mistake of acting like a DA in government. And it doesn't work that way. Can you imagine if the ANC in government would have a problem? Now, we need to, the reason of the journey is to unite everyone. It was a wrong decision also by the Minister of Basic Education, not to go to this. That was a wrong decision, because he doesn't report to Helen Zille. She reports to the president of the country, Ramaphosa. If the president says, come here, we're signing, you go or you resign from your position. You can't be in a part of a government where you don't respect its commander-in-chief, which is the president. Now, on the EFF one, yes, I'll engage if requested to. If they are willing to come in, I'll go. Look, I don't have a bad relationship with Julius. We differ, yes, fundamentally on politics and approach on many other issues. He's a former president of COSAS. I'm a former president of COSAS. He's a former president of the Youth League. I'm a current president of the Youth League. We'll engage on it. We've been attempting to engage him even before he decided not to form part of the GNU. We know the attitude of Floyd towards the ANC for years, and its organization. It has made it difficult to us to relate with the EFF on how to engage with them. But we hope now that he has gone and joined that political party that has no office, he's going to be able to, I don't know how he's going to last there, but we wish him all the best, whatever he's doing there. But we know that he's not going to last. But we'll engage with the EFF if they want to, because we've invited everyone. We've signed agreements with those that came in. I don't think they want us to close them out. I know others can say, no, they've refused. But I believe that we can still engage with them so that we show the country that we want to work with everyone to fix this country until the next elections. We don't want a civil war in this country or collapse in this country. South Africans did not give anyone the majority to govern on their own. They wanted us to do what we're doing now, and that's what we're doing now.
Your SG, Fikile Mbalula, has had, of course, war of words with Helen Zille, who's, of course, the federal chairperson of the Democratic Alliance. Is there an irritation? I mean, you would know best within the ANC ranks that Helen Zille is trying to too much of power within this government of national unity, given that she's not even the head of state, she's not even heading this government of national unity, because of the record, it just seems that certain ANC members are not comfortable with her just demanding or making demands, which the ANC has stood by and said, well, we're going to stick to our principles. Other partners within the GNU have stuck to their principles. Got one party who's trying to maybe strong arm their way into the way the government of national unity must work.
Look, it's upon Steenhuisen if he wants to be an ice boy of Helen Zille or he wants to lead. Because if Steenhuisen wants to lead, he must lead now. Prove to South Africans that doesn't have to be an ice boy of Helen Zille. Because he doesn't appear like a typical leader of the DA. You know, he's not all over the show. He does not speak out of turn. He allows engagements. But you see, the problem is that the conduct of the old woman is that she's just all over the show. And highly excited. And sometimes when I sit alone somewhere, I've got a strong feeling that maybe she wants this GNU to collapse, because she doesn't appear like someone who's was all nursing it. Remember, in the African National Congress, not everyone agrees with the GNU, how it's structured, especially with the DA. You know, it's a difficult one because of ideological differences. But we're nursing it because we understand the importance of carrying this thing until the next elections, where we win over 51% of votes of South Africa. Now, until then, you have two options. It's either you collapse this country totally in the middle of a crisis of unemployment, or you set up a government that can put South Africans first. Now, Helen Zille and how she conducts herself, I'll leave it to the ANC leadership to manage it. I don't think I'll have the patience if I was there to deal with that. But, you know, as being youth, was sometimes impatient. But we'll leave it to them. I think they know how best they can manage it. But I don't like how she conducts the work.
SACP, COSATU, I mean, especially the SACP, they've been, I listened to Solima Pahila on another platform voicing, you know, his unhappiness at the GNU because he's quoted that some of the parties represent the neoliberal ideas. How important is it for the mother body, the ANC, to try and assure the tripartite alliance partners who have been with the ANC for quite some time that this is a workable system? And is it something that you believe, I mean, you're an ANC Youth League member, Youth League president, and you're quite a senior figure within the movement itself, that this is a workable system. Do you believe that they still believe that it's a workable system? Because there seems to be an unhappiness from, especially the South African Communist Party, yeah.
Look, he is not wrong to say that there are neoliberal organizations that have joined the GNU, which DA is one of them. But we are in these conditions. We negotiate with the people that we know. We know that the DAs, but we've agreed with them on areas of non-compromising and of implementing that. He is wrong to say the ANC are sellouts. That is wrong because he is part of engagements with us, with the GNU. Ourselves and Costa, the mass democratic movement, did not even get 50+1 together combined. We were at 40%. Now, all of us have received a setback. Now, we need to nurse it. You know, you see, the problem is that you can't say, as the Communist Party, you want the ANC to work with partners like MK. MK has proven that it has said in his manifesto, in his work, that does not value the constitution of the country. It is how it associated, taken people who have been highly implicated and challenged the State Capture Commission into Parliament. Now it tells you it's a lawless political party. Now it doesn't represent what the ANC stands for in our renewal program. And now we've requested them that, are you going to follow our renewal agenda? They've refused. Because on top of our agenda is constitutionality. You know, they are racist. Now the ANC can associate themselves with that. And I don't think the Communist Party also wants to associate themselves with such a political party. Now, what choices are you left with? You are left with those that say, okay, we differ here and here on ideology, but on the issue of the country and safeguarding the country, we agree. We'll join the GNU on this basis. We'll vote for the president of the ANC-led government to lead this GNU. He must appoint this cabinet because that cabinet is a cabinet of President Ramaphosa. He's not a GNU cabinet, and it's a cabinet of President Ramaphosa, which has appointed ministers from other political parties who implements what cabinets agrees on and parliament agrees on. That's their role, and that's how government works in South Africa. Now, anything else of what people are saying in corners might not assist us to move forward.
One final question before we go to the break, Mr. Malatji. The question on Palestine, you've been a strong supporter of the solidarity of the Palestinian people. I've seen you in the rallies. A lot of the worry from especially the Muslim population, and you've got a very strong relationship with the Muslim population,
Yes.
you've been engaging with so much of them, is that within this government of national unity there are fears that the ANC will not carry on from a motion that was passed in Parliament to close the Israeli embassy up until they adhere to international law. As the Youth League, as the president of the Youth League, are you going to be putting pressure on the mother body to say, well, this resolution needs to be taken in Parliament because the genocide in Gaza is showing no signs of stopping?
Parliament has already taken a decision, if you remember.
Yes.
This is there. It's a decision of Parliament. We'll be pushing for the implementation of it fully. Our posture as the ANC has been clear in government. We've been outright fighting, whether going to ICC, whether going to... We've been fighting everywhere. Our president has been clear, the Youth League has been clear, the NEC of the ANC has been clear. We have not been neutral in our posture on... I know some of our partners in the GNU, the TA and the PA have been clear to support the Israel. That's where the South Africans have put us. As I've said in the beginning, we're working with people that we don't agree with them. But there's only one president. Is President Ramaphosa.
And he's got the prerogative.
He's got the prerogative and the powers to do. And people joined the GNU knowing our stance on Palestine. And people have been killed every day there, I know the ANC has suffered a lot for that posture, and maybe you might not know. The Youth League has been struggling also financially, and the ANC, because no one wanted, all the sponsors who must sponsor the ANC have all pulled out because of our posture. And no one wants to come forward to assist. And maybe those who can, who believe in our struggle, maybe to utilize this platform to say that come forward, assist the Youth League, assist the ANC, because we need to wait, because the moment we are bankrupt, we don't have, we can't do programs, we can't do activities, it means the struggle is all sold out, because we'll not be able to be doing activities to fight. We'll be weakened. It means the political parties that are anti what the ANC believes in will be strengthened.
After the break, I continue a conversation with Collen Malatji. To wrap up the conversation, we're going to be talking renewal of the ANC. He mentioned it now. How does the ANC renew itself heading in to the local government elections of 2026 and the next national and provincial elections in 2029? To stay tuned. Welcome back to Talking Point. Now, this year's election saw the ANC lose its majority, and of course, mentioned earlier on that it was, through the electoral system, forced to create this government of national unity. Mr. Malatji, I know there's only so much the Youth League could have done to obviously campaign for the ANC, but how much of a shock was it that the party had lost this majority? You've mentioned there are various factors, especially within the youth, that saw the ANC lose this majority, but was it a real shock to the system? Is the ANC still coming to terms with the fact that they've lost this majority?
Yeah, look, we have prepared for it. The signs were there as early as 2016, 2011, 2016. We were starting to lose our metros. People said that the ANC must renew itself. The ANC can associate itself with corruption. But also, renewal is not only about fighting corruption. It's about building structures that respond to community issues. We need branches of the ANC that respond when there's no water, respond when there's no electricity. Ambassadors against crime. Now, an ANC that is activist based in their own communities, that is not detached from the people. And now we analyzed on our own and said part of the reasons we are losing support is because our structures are no longer existing strongly on the ground. And a proper branch of the ANC must be led by a person who understands all challenges. A BC of the ANC must know all problems. When there is no electricity, the BC of the ANC must be the first to communicate the community, call public meetings when there's crime, be part of community forums. Now that is the renewal of the ANC. It's an activist organization. It can't be an ANC that only comes when there's elections, say vote for us. It must be an ANC that is always the first to respond to problems in communities. And that is what the renewal is about. The other issues, yes, they're important because you need to clean up. It can't be associated with corruption. It can't be associated with dodgy characters. It must be an organization that society mirrors itself to be part of.
The renewal of the ANC, I was listening 2 weeks ago to former President Thabo Mbeki's lecture at UNISA, and he said a lot of the renewal is going to come from within the inside, and one of it has to be the cleaning up, because the ANC has been always associated with corrupt individuals. There are some members of the ANC that are still sitting in the Zondo State Capture Commission report. So how does the ANC renew itself, but renew itself without these members that have brought the party into disrepute?
We've set up an integrity committee in the ANC, led by veterans of the movement. As I'm sitting here today, there's no one who's charged of corruption who's in the leadership of the ANC. We've acted on it. I don't know if society is aware that, if not the only organization that acts on people who are charged of corruption or wrongdoing. Now, that is the most important thing. But you see, the most important thing was understand that the only way renewal will happen in the ANC, it must start in the ANC Youth League. Because the ANC Youth League is a preparatory school of the ANC. Now, it produces leaders for the ANC. Now, there is no sky. Now, everyone who wants to renew the ANC must invest everything in their power into strong structures of the ANC Youth League, because they'll give birth to strong structures of the ANC. It's not something that you will do overnight. It's a program that we must go through the pain of making sure it happens. It means we must spend time in our branches, in our corners, in our communities, making sure that those things happen.
If you were to go to the street, and I know you do a lot of the groundwork,
yes.
You got 2026 in 2 years' time, you've got 2029, of course, in 5 years' time. How does the ANC then convince the man or woman on the street, the boy or girl on the street, that you're still a party to vote for? Because the youth are going to listen to you. They're not going to listen to an elderly speak, because unfortunately they are out of touch with them. But they're in touch with you because you would understand their issues on the street. So how do you, as Collen Malatji, go to the street and tell that very same boy or girl, man or woman, that the ANC is still a party that they can vote for local government elections and the national provincial elections, given the ANC has taken quite a beating within the national and provincial elections?
Look, I will not be playing. Starting from next week, next month, I'll be moving around all the ministers. I've started with the Deputy Minister of Home Affairs, and I'll engage the ministers of police. I'm taking them to towns to clean up. I'll involve the youth in the crime fighting, the issue of the neutralization. The youth will no longer listen to stories now. They want practical work, and it's what I'll be doing. I'll be taking them to where communities are to address, and I'll be showing the president of the Youth League has brought everyone here to be accountable to you, raise all the issues you want to raise, and they must give you time frames when they'll be resolved. I'll be not moving alone. I'll be carrying the youth with in this program, because the only way the ANC will come back into power and the youth to be active again, it's when now we practicalize everything we speak about and implement it, and the youth will be in the forefront of making sure that happens.
One final question, Mr. Malatji, the relevance of the Youth League now. As we sit in 2024, how much of a role does it still need to play with not only the political climate, but also the economical climate of this country? I know there's, again, only so much that you can do. But how do you, as Collen Malatji, say, I have to now maybe even take a bigger step up so that the youth of this country, when they wake up the following morning, they have everything enshrined in the Bill of Rights and in the Constitution, but also at the same time they can live a life where they can leave a legacy for the next generation?
Yeah, I've explained at the beginning that, look, our obsession is the economy. We've set up the issue of export quotas. We want to fight for it with everything we have. It's our legacy program for youth of this country to be protected, because what can resolve all our problems is when the youth is actively involved in their own economic activities of their own country. They'll move out of drugs, they'll move out of everything. School sports and all of these issues are issues that are on top of our agenda. And we met with SAFA even today, the Youth League with SAFA at our head office. We meet controllers. Every day we're in meetings, bringing all stakeholders to resolve all of these problems. We're bringing everyone along because we want to ultimately resolve the problems we're faced with. Now, the Youth League is relevant more than ever now, especially at a time where there's high level of unemployment, where in GNUs, there's a bit of instability. You need that voice of the voiceless to come in and resolve all of those problems. You
spoke about SAFA. My director told me we've got a little bit of time. I mean, I'm sure you're watching the European Championships. Spain had a 16-year-old boy up until the final. He was 17, Lamine Yamal. Yes. How much of a push there have to be now for youth to be involved in the sport? So, like, for example, you want to see an 18-year-old playing in the senior Bafana team, not just, for Bafana, but Banyana, an 18-year-old girl playing there. Rugby, of course, rugby's got legacy funding, of course, apartheid time, and of course now. So you've seen that rugby has been able to maintain itself. But how does SAFA, how does cricket, how does athletics? You've seen young boys, the youngster who ran in the relays for Team South Africa. How does South Africa create, and the youth league's involvement now in saying we need to have 18 and 19-year-olds winning us gold medals, winning us trophies at the highest level, so that that legacy can create for generations to come?
For years, we've been fighting for school sports to come back and be formalized. And you've seen the last few weeks, the Minister of Basic Education and Sports signed an MOU on the school sports. It's part of the achievements of the Youth League that we've been pushing for years, to formalize it as part of the curriculum, that everyone must play sports. You know, whether you want to do swimming, whether you want to do, and with the new twinning program of schools and townships, and it assists because the schools that have no pools can exchange students to go and do swimming, those who have grounds. We can all of do those programs, and it must be fully funded. The private sector, as much as they invest in rugby, must go and invest in other sports, in codes, so that it assists, especially soccer and cricket, which mainly soccer is under-invested, and athletics. There is not a lot of investment in South Africa on those sports, and we're calling upon everyone to invest in those areas. But the only way to get a 16-year-old to play for Bafana Bafana or Banyana Banyana, you need to start at the level of primary school, to be preparing those kids for that future. They can't start at 16. They must start as early as 8, 9, being identified and being trained, so they ultimately are ready for the bigger responsibilities.
Doing things on a much lighter note, there was Collen Malatji. What position did he play in football?
I tried, but I was not a good soccer player. But I tried to play. But I did play. Okay. I did try to also play for Chimison City, Swallows Development. I did try, but I was not strong in that field of sports.
Well, you're quite strong in politics, at least you found your purpose in life. Mr. Malatji, thank you so much for joining us here on Talking Point on Hilaal TV. Much appreciated.
No, thank you very much.
That's Collen Malatji, ANC Youth League President, joining us here to talk about 80 years of the ANC youth movement, and of course its relevance then and its relevance now, as we are in a new era of politics, 7th administration and government of national unity. Well, that's all we have for you here on A Talking Point on Hilaal TV. From myself, Fahraaz Patel, and the rest of the team in Johannesburg. We'll see you again next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.